Hi everyone, it's me again. Jason, still present, trying to do a little bit more of a co-host vibe today, I think, is what we're going for. So today we're going to talk about Keemstar's podcast again, because I'm just riding on his coattails for my 1,200 subscriber clout chase. And today's video too, I've broken down into like pretty kind of concrete chapters, which again, as per like most of the time, if I remember, I will chapter the video as well. So you'll have like your little, you can click around and do whatever you wish. So I'm just exhausted of listening to Keemstar's voice. After my last video, even listening to the Trisha Paytas podcast, where they just like rode the Keem weenie for whatever half an hour, which is lovely because the Gabbie Hanna episode was, an hour and whatever, 2 minutes. Yeah, I don't know, like and subscribe or whatever. And let's get into it. So I have 5 sections here today. Point-by-point summary of the podcast, the common characteristics and confirmation bias present in the podcast, hypocrisy against woke and SJW culture with internet and edgelord weaponization of terminology. Then we have, I just named it, they all hate women for some reason, and yes, I will explain why. And then finally, we have our final thoughts on how to approach the topics that I discussed above. So going right into the point by point, what I do with these types of things, I'll listen to it and have my iPad and I'll handwrite. All my notes are always handwritten, which is cool because then no one else can read them because my handwriting is not good. And I just kind of like sat there and listened, and then point by point, I just kind of wrote what I was thinking. I have a couple of them with actual timestamps. Further, when they get more toxic, I'd argue. First, I wrote the quote, "When I come for tea channels, they fold. They're sorry for when I come for them." Didn't finish the quote, but essentially it was like, and then after, like, they'll come for me again. Like, they'll apologize when I DM them, and then after that, they fold. I come for edgelord content creator men all the time because I'm not scared of them. I will say I am scared of hundreds of thousands of people hating me all of a sudden. Like, I feel like that's a component that these things people completely disregard. They're like, oh, they're scared of me. It's like, no, I'm scared of you leaking, of like one of your crazy audience members, like insane level stans leaking my address on 4chan. Like, I'm not scared of no man, 5'1" at best, bearded, dates people the same age as his kid +9 man, right? So I'm not scared of Keemstar. I'm not scared of FaZe. I'm not scared of any of these people. I am scared though of, a stadium's worth of people DMing me on Twitter, because there's a difference between the fear of being berated and the fear of the person itself. That's why I've always thought these like comments are so stupid. And because even they're afraid of audiences. These people, these edgelord men private their Twitter all the time. Repsion's is private right now. They don't like being berated either. So like, what's the argument here? I wrote a cuss word in the second one, so I have to try to figure out how to get around this. They're immediately inflating each other's egos. Like, they went straight into the jump of trying to like be on each other's, best possible opinions or whatnot. I don't know the word I'm looking for because I can't say what I wrote because it's money. So they went right in trying to boost each other's egos as much as possible and try to commend each other. In the same vein as Trisha Paytas' podcast had very similar, like where they are talking to Keemstar about like, oh my god, you chase people, like how do you do it? And then they're talking to Trisha Paytas like, oh my god, you've been on the internet for so long and you trolled so well and all that kind of stuff.
I'm not pro Keem. I just like having discussions with people that I disagree with. I think it's interesting because you meet someone on like a human level. It's not that like we're gonna be like friends, I don't think, but you never know.
You never know.
You never know.
I was trying to be besties.
Yeah, that's how Ethan, I went on his podcast literally because he like called me a whale. He said I looked like a corpse, a wrestler, like all this stuff. And I still went on the podcast. And
very similar. Where it's like, oh, Gabbie Hanna's so resilient and people are so crazy. You just want to be an artist. And then Keemstar, I'm not a tea channel. Shit, you have drama in your title of your YouTube channel. Drama channels.
We're going to keep breaking the internet because we have one of the most controversial figures and talented figures of all of YouTube. I'm telling you, she's got some talent. We're talking about the one, the only Gabbie Hanna.
Wait, am I at the point where I start getting introduced as one of the most controversial figures?
Well, you are.
In like the tea community, right?
Yeah.
That's so embarrassing.
Next one, I just said buzzwords right away. You can hear Gabbie Hanna, like she's getting talked over by Keemstar and FaZe, but she says gaslighting and ADHD within the first like 3 minutes. But Gabbie says Ethan cares about mental health, but has the meltdown award like Gabbie Hanna cares. Because Gabbie Hanna is a mental health advocate for her own mental health, not for the mental health of other people. And that's the main issue that people have been having with her for all this time. Gabbie doesn't understand the calmness is not the objective reaction to her videos. Because so she's talking about how she's like, oh, all these people hate me because all these like narratives these drama channels have. And then they come on and they see that I'm just painting. It's like, no, you're not painting. You're screaming at the top of your lungs, literally, that Angelica Oles is like the most evil person on the internet.
You are a fucking raging narcissist who once again made a child's death and a grieving mother about you, and then use that as a way to exploit me because what the mother of the murdered child said didn't fit your narrative that I'm a psycho, crazy, monster, manipulative, sociopathic liar.
The worst part is like all these drama channels are putting in clips of your video that you put out of you screaming. Yet you make all these comments like just out of gas. So it's kind of interesting when you think about it that way, is how are people able to prove these things with the content that you put out, but for some reason everybody's wrong except for you? Food for thought, that's it. Gabbie also doesn't understand that she never has calm reactions about anything, because she talks about how when she addresses people on Twitter that she does so calmly. No. Or at least on Instagram, she's not.
Because I think it's really fucking weird that a grown woman consistently inserts herself into my life and situations always.
And then I think but it's interesting because Gabbie uses the example of talking to Keemstar. Keemstar is like a edgelord Gabbie Hanna contrarian defender, not necessarily objectively a good person. Oh, that I just wrote privileged people flexing that they could have success. Face Banks talks about how he was broke for a while and then he got 5150'd, then he lost everything, but then could rebuild Face. Good job. Claps. But the thing is like you already had a name in social media. Same thing as like Keemstar's really gonna flex like the whatever X million subscribers on his channel, like the other 3 channels that got deleted didn't have whatever X million subscribers. It's the same way as a lot of these creators, like Tana Mojo, for example, flexes the OnlyFans numbers like millions of people don't know who they are already. There's no acknowledgement of the previous platform going into this new platform that makes it easy for them to garner success. I said that I can commend Gabbie for saying that monsters, like the monster meme video, was actually her sounding like shit. Butterflies was kind of a good song, actually, from that era, despite the fact that that she said that they were all bad. I was just so surprised that Gabbie Hanna took any amount of responsibility for something for like 30 seconds. I was just like, wow. Because even Keemstar tried to do the like usual deflecting and was like, oh, well, wasn't it their microphone? Like, wasn't it entirely their fault? She actually went like, no, oh shit. It's like the fact that the bar is not on the floor. The bar is like, you need an anthropologist to find it. You got to get the little brushes and the shovels. Like, that's where the bar is. Next, Escape the Night video was her deterring her attitude. Yeah, because she's like, well, I admitted I was a bitch. But then the entire time is saying that she was a bitch because of other people. So that's not owning your attitude at all. That's just putting it onto somebody else, despite the fact that you claim you have autonomy over your own actions. And these are two contradicting ideas, right? Oh, and I just have in all caps, where did Rachel lie as my next one, which actually timestamped at 40 minutes.
Tells me you're so sensitive, get off the internet. But if I respond to anybody who's literally been lying about me for 2 years, then I'm
it's like that gotcha shit. Like a gotcha. Look what you just said. Gotcha. It's like, dude, come on.
You're dying to finish. Go ahead.
And then I also have another one that just says, Keem, I'm so privileged but not happy enough, so I mess with people for fun.
So I take this massive, like, millions of people talking shit and like this big war, and I turn it into a game, and I am winning the fucking game, and it's fun. It's fun to compete. It's fun to win.
A minute. Do you remember April when I was popping off on everybody?
Because Keemstar said, like, sometimes you're not happy, even though you have a big house and cars and success and money. So that you just need to find something that fuels you. And he says, like, he has this high energy. And what fuels him is, like, messing with Ethan Klein on Twitter. What? What? Oh, my boyfriend just messaged me. He says, by the way, Keemstar's 5'8". I mean, still a widow baby. Gabbie flexing her degree with the most basic psychology study that exists. Because Gabbie goes on this like rant about Pavlov's dogs and the bell, like when you ring the bell and they salivate with the food, and then says that like YouTubers salivate over like clout and clickbait titles and stuff because they get confirmation. But then Gabbie Hanna made an entire series to have her own confirmation that she never did anything wrong ever. So Gabbie, replaced clout with not taking responsibility for your actions, replace clickbait thumbnails with being a jerk, and then you've done it. So I don't really see the point you're making here because you're feeling your own confirmation. Gabbie talks about Jessie Smiles like, oh, the video had like years and years of text, like she doesn't have 8+ years of text messages. That's all I said. That was stupid. SJW woke are keywords of the gamer edgelord content creator audience, despite the fact that they say that other people use keywords such as like mental health advocacy and being politically correct and not using slurs. I loved that Gabbie Hanna has a denial of any individual autonomy of the audience, despite a career that depends on public opinion. Literally all of them blame the audience that gives them money on the fact that they don't think exactly like them, which is just so weird to me. And then, yeah, Gabbie Hanna says like, oh, I watched Nicholas Diorio stream and I'm looking and then there's people like, I came here to defend Jessie. I'm pro Jessie. And then they like left being pro Gabbie Hanna. Gabbie Hanna is very, like I said, very feeling the confirmation bias, right? Because you can have like 50,000 people watch a stream and then 2 people can be, I'd argue, manipulated into a way to think that Gabbie Hanna hasn't done anything wrong. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, she was right the whole time. But then the fact that like 90% of the internet doesn't think this way, and I would say most people, at least commenting on her stuff, like on Gabbie Hanna stuff for the video that they're going to make, are watching your content. That's another thing. And like, Gabbie knows how to edit videos. I have to watch her videos through like 5 or 6 times because when I'm finding the pieces that I need to put in. So it's like, even if I haven't seen it going in, which I always do, by the way, I have to see it like a dozen times coming out. Okay, now we're going to go into the common characters and confirmation bias section, where I just said 3 people that are hated online are coming together, blatantly like each other based solely / primarily on the similar characteristic. And also this episode was blatantly linked with the Trisha Paytas one, just to show that Trisha Paytas, I would argue, is like a disposable entity. That's a little bit tinfoil hatty of me to say, but it just because it's like so blatant with a 30-minute episode that they rush her out of to like letting Gabbie Hanna, because I think it's like 54 minutes. They go, oh, we should wrap it up, and then Gabbie Hanna's allowed to pull like another 8 minutes. So that was really cool. And then I also said, Keem starts always like insisting that he's into talking people, like to people for like, oh, I want to hear everybody's ideas. I'm really into other people's ideas. Like he doesn't have just carbon copies of clout chasing contrarians or people who are just jerks on his podcast, or people who just like clout chase for the sake of fame and money, and then they have no concept of any, like, there's no like love for what they do on the platform. Because I just like read the next like 5 guests down of Trisha Paytas, and it was like Summer Rae, FouseyTube, Rice Gum, and Nicholas Diorio. It's like these are all people that are just have very similar attributes to Keemstar. Summer Rae, I would argue, more similar to FaZe Banks, just that very like clout, money, fame, flexing culture that doesn't really come from anything besides like privilege and being attractive or having money, or all 3. Into this a lot more with the Trisha Paytas video, and I'll tag it in the cards because I talked about that kind of ego and how they all chase the same ideas, and that's why they can have this discourse that has nothing to do with any sort of confrontation. There's no confrontational discourse here whatsoever. It was just saving self, like a saving face for the sake of fueling their problematic behavior. It was kind of just all of them, boosting each other's egos about the fact that they don't want to change and they don't feel like they have to because they've been on the internet for a long time.
I'll just do this for a little while, but
it's fucking exhausting though, isn't it? It's exhausting.
So I'll link that video up here, and that can be kind of a more in-depth conversation, just because I feel like I've already iterated that already, and because it's all the same. That's the problem, right? It's all the same stuff. So at part 3 I have is hypocrisy against SJW and woke people. So at the 46-minute mark.
Oh, like honestly.
You know what really bothers me is the people that attack you, right? Mostly female audience. Mm-hmm. They're the most SJW, like woke and mental health and don't bully people.
Exactly.
And they fucking, they're such hypocrites
But
with
they
you.
just weaponize
They
that
treat
shit.
you so
But
evil.
like they speak, oh, mental health, we care. And it's like, okay, I'm telling you right now that I have like a lot of shit fucked up with me. I'm just like trying my best. I've literally never not apologized.
They say that woke people are weaponizing mental health, being politically correct, etc. Right? They villainize what it means to have these values, though they weaponize the terms woke and SJW the same way that they say these ideologies are weaponized against them. So, Richard Weaver, I've talked about before, right? And I've talked about God terms and stuff, mostly on, I'd argue, like, I've done a lot of live stream stuff, which I can tag the 2 live streams I was on down below as well, but I'm going to read it verbatim from the book. An ultimate term is a word or name that has a great deal of power to move human impulse. Weaver explains that a God term is an expression about which in all other expressions are ranked as subordinate and serving dominations and powers. That is a God term that subsumes all other terms and a rally cry for culture. And I would argue that that term is when they're talking about how men are logical compared to women and the reaction to Gabbie Hanna because the male audience is more forgiving to Gabbie Hanna for whatever reason.
Nicholas Diorio and a couple of their commentators, right? They have a male audience. They covered some of the Gabbie situation and the reaction was wildly different.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, Gabbie's innocent, right? But in this female T audience type of thing, they're like, she's guilty no matter what. Like, it's so insane.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's so insane. And I don't know what that
because
says.
Maybe not for anything simp related or clout related or misogyny related or anything, maybe. I don't know. Because it's almost like there was like a rally of contrarian, like a group of contrarian men that rallied together for Gabbie Hanna. Contrarian men that are super not nice to women, so the women didn't want to believe them. And then when they looked into their opinions, they were like, yeah, these are kind of weird. And almost like there might be men that will blindly follow the creators that they like, the same way that the women that they accuse, like that they accuse women of doing. I digress. So I think their God term is like, it's like the kind of like not changing or like discourse. Like these are these terms that they're like saying that they're so for and that they are so enveloped, consumed by, yet the fact that they don't actually like stay true to any of these things whatsoever, which is interesting. Because then you have the opposite, right? So ultimate terms can also unite a culture against a group or idea. Weaver refers to these as terms of repulsion, counterparts of the God term being the devil term. The word communist is one that has often been a devil term in the US, which in this case, these devil terms or terms of repulsion they're utilizing are SJW and woke people. Despite the fact that these ideologies that these SJWs or woke people, especially that are coming towards Keemstar, are against like fundamental actions of that are kind of heinous that he's doing in the first place, such as kind of like seemingly trying to manipulate young women. That relationship already ended, by the way. Who's surprised? I hope it had something to do with her, Keemstar's girlfriend, whatever, like realizing what was going on. Like, I really genuinely hope that it was something along those lines. Because Keemstar's fame is from rallying based on terms of repulsion, right? So Keemstar, Keemstar rallies on the very thing that he accuses other people of doing, right? We always talk about the word hypocrisy, but I feel like people don't tend to break as eloquently or as they could or as concretely break down what exactly makes Keemstar a hypocrite. It's just the fact that he rallies on this exact same methodology that other people are using, but he does it in the form of being a contrarian, being against what they value. And because his argument is, well, I'm talking about different stuff. It's like in a math problem when there's multiple ways to get to the same solution, you know? There's multiple answers that can, like multiple ways to show your work that are going to get the same answer. That's like what he lives off of. Even he says he calls other people T channels when the only thing that he's doing is a different format. You know, I've been referred to as a drama commentary kind of T channel type thing. And I mean, that's fine. I don't think, I think the T channel becoming a repulsion term or a term of repulsion, is also kind of interesting because then you can group these people with some specific outliers and then kind of just deem them as people who don't do research and stuff, despite the fact that, like I said, even in just putting the videos together, you're stuck watching those content creators work. So you're seeing it anyways. So I don't really understand where that comes from either, because Keemstar has never been someone regarded for doing research. He mostly just goes on Twitter, screams, and then reads the responses of them, but I digress. Now we're going to get to a more complicated section, which are the issues with women. So there are 6 rhetorical tactics that have been used against women, done by a famous rhetorician named Mary Daly, or Daly, I don't know, it's D-A-L-Y, regardless. And there's 6 rhetorical techniques that are used to keep women in the foreground. Now, the first 3 are kind of hard because they're on like a much more like societal range. So the first 3 are ritualistic violence, silencing women's voices, and fixing women's images. Keemstar can't really do that because he doesn't have enough effect on culture to do that. And also, like, he's not doing crimes against women on camera. Like, he's not, like, one of them that's described as ritualistic violence is, like, the burning of witches. And I don't think there's, like, a section of Drama Alert where crimes against humanity like that. I'm sorry, now I'm just imagining, like, Witch Star or Keem Witch, and I'm just laughing. I know it's inappropriate, like, to laugh about crimes against women, but I'm just thinking about Witch Keemstar now, and I can't get it out of my mind. So I guess I'm gonna, like, make a Witch Keemstar image, and I'm gonna put it up here so other people can understand what I'm thinking. Just, like, can't stop. So the ones that there are, the 3 at the end, the tail end, I have broken down and have shown that they have done this. So it's refusing to see the problem, reversal, and elementary terms are the 3 that they use against women at about the 40-minute mark of the podcast. So in the section of refusing to see the woman's problem, the author of the textbook summarizes as, this strategy is rhetorically created to distract any attention from the foreground and reduce the consciousness of women's oppression. According to I'm going to say Daly, there are 4 responses that characterize this rhetorical strategy: depreciation, particularization, spiritualization, and universalization. Essentially, these are responses the foreground uses to reduce or eliminate the idea that women's oppression exists in the first place. And while I'm not saying that Keemstar is saying that we should oppress women, I will say that Keemstar grouping an entire female audience, like a group of YouTube viewers that are women, as people that are formally illogical, is doing that particularization and depreciation of, like, the values that they could have, and the fact that they might have autonomy, and the idea to have logical thought, and the idea that they might be able to think differently than just like a blanket, everyone has the same opinion. And then when you go into reversal, it is Daly posited the reversal is yet another rhetorical strategy the foreground uses to neutralize the status quo. As a theologician, she draws from the Bible's Adam and Eve story as blatantly obvious example of the reversal claim that Eve was born out of Adam's rib and therefore Adam was the first mother. Other reversal examples include eroticism of pain, encouraging women feel enduring pain is sexually desirable. This is evident in the book series 50 Shades of Grey. Reversals create paradoxes, or what Daly calls doublethink, where people believe in or demonstrate 2 incompatible concepts. Additional includes body mutilation is desirable and guns referred to as peacekeepers. So when I was thinking about this one was how Keemstar says that this audience and this group of edgelord men that he thinks are the greatest minds on this YouTube platform for whatever reason are like the good guys, and going against valuing people's rights and valuing that people might be mentally ill and valuing that like sex workers are actual people and valuing like these fundamentally good things are actually what's bad, and then letting the people that have oppressed, arguably very privileged men, that these people are the ones we should be listening to. The people that have not dealt with any of the problems they're commenting on, that have no concept of the struggles that these people are dealing with, and just completely denounce them, especially regarding essay stuff with women, that these are the people that are keeping the peace. And these are the people that are logical. And these are the people that we should be... So essentially that they're thinking that reverting back is the way that things are supposed to be working. And then lastly, you have elementary terms. Demonstrates the foreground employs the use of elementary terms. These are words, acronyms, or phrases oppressors use to dull the senses and discourage critical thinking. And this is what I said, like the breaking all these women down to SJW. they're just SJWs. They don't actually think, they just throw these terms around, despite the fact that Keem starts throwing the word SJW and woke around, despite the fact that I keep reiterating that these things involve a lot of the time respecting people's values. And Keemstar seems to think in extremes only, that, you know, people that are, let's say, like, you know, let's say, like, kill all men, stuff like that, that they're, that's, like, what people actually think, and that's the only thing that people can actually think. So then reduces everybody to just being an SJW and just being a feminist and weaponizing what it means to be a feminist. And oh my god, even I remember Repsion tweeted, I never said I was a feminist. I never said I liked women. Okay. Like, and people are going to say that I'm being like a preachy SJW, but fundamentally, I'm just saying, speak to me like a person, respect the fact that I've actually done research, and respect the fact that I might know what I'm talking about, respect the fact that I feel like I have autonomy and I can evaluate people on my own terms, like Gabbie Hanna, for example. Like, I'm not arguing for things like I should be able to single-handedly deplatform Keemstar. I'm just saying, I'm arguing for very fundamentally, like, good, I would argue good things that should just be accepted. But I'm going to be called, like, a preachy feminist, leftist, communist, or something like that, which is just, I'm just commenting on things that I feel like are just fundamentally what should just exist. My final thoughts are the fact that they fueled misogyny, that they create their own sphere of confirmation bias, the fact that they've been able to have a group of people that can just boost each other constantly in this way of regression, the fact that they just use Trisha as a pawn to hurt Ethan and his family, and to hurt the idea that people should have any responsibility for their actions, to then carry Gabbie Hanna for the sake of building enemies and getting clout is really gross. And this podcast sucked, and I listened to it on like 1.5 the first time and 2.5 the second time because I was just trying to get through it as fast as humanly possible. And 6, random note, it's a shame that FaZe Banks is such a dummy because his voice is really nice. It's so sad because it would be nice to listen to somebody like that if they weren't, like, you know, sucking off Keemstar for 70 minutes or whatever it is. I just am so thankful to be in a different space because these people bother me to no end. And I just hope that, like, there's, like, fun drama. I can be like Peter Mon and flip my fans because I'm just, like, getting really tired of this. But I just kind of feel like I wanted to break down fundamentally what's actually frustrating people in a way that they can't just, like, throw the term SJW, because I literally have, like, research from like rhetoricians and philosophers and these concrete examples that I'm going to, like, as you would have seen by now, have clips of what they're saying that I can actually, like, relate to each one of the things, and I will put the little pictures in it. You would have seen it already, regardless. So thanks for watching. Meme will come at the end as always. Like, subscribe, whatever. I also tweet out all the videos. My Twitter's linked down below too if you want to, like, usually follow people that converse with me frequently. So, like, I'm really into talking to people about stuff too. So, you know, legitimate discourse with people who disagree with me. Yeah, so y'all have a good day. Jason says goodbye. There's my man's right over there. And have a good day. Bye.
Oh my gosh, we don't have any non-fat milk!